welcome to Sunny with a Chance of Chaos, the podcast that is equal parts optimistic and realistic. Join me as we navigate the ups and downs that everyday life brings. I'm Lindsay, and I'm so glad you're here. So get a coffee, get comfy, and get ready for a little bit of life's chaos. Hey everyone, welcome back to Sunny with a Chance of Chaos. I am so happy you've decided to join me again for this extremely joy-filled piece of my life, this podcast. I don't know if it comes across clearly enough during recording, but I truly love doing this work. And my favorite thing is when I hear from my listeners about their own experiences with the podcast content. So here's another voice memo from another listener.
Hey Lindsay, as someone who has been described as frank or direct, I completely absorbed your message about being assertive versus an asshole. I once caught an interview with a psychologist on the radio, and the closing question was, if you could give important advice to anyone, what would it be? The psychologist's response was, figure out what it is that you want and learn how to ask for it. For many, the first half of that statement is difficult, but today you were focusing on the second half, learn how to ask for it. We have standard ways of making requests, but you push people to engage in the back and forth dance of reading another's response, minding one's own internal dialogue, self-regulating your mood to adjust accordingly. I love the phrase, raise your words and not your voice. I will take a way to soften my tone or lead with questions when feeling in conflict or disrespected. Thanks, Lindsay.
Thanks so much for your words and reflections, V. That was really great. I really appreciate you. Thanks. This week, I want to talk about help and being helpful, and most importantly, when help is not helpful. I would define myself as a person who likes to help. I like to be useful. I like to be the one who helps, almost to a fault sometimes, because there are definitely times when help is not helpful, which I continue to learn the hard way. I'm going to share with you the moment this very important lesson started to solidify for me. I have a very best friend. Her name is S. In Grey's Anatomy terms, she's my person. We have been friends for 15 years, and just a few years ago, we got into our first ever conflict. It was during the pandemic, and she, at the time, was a doctor, and I was, and still am, a teacher. We were both navigating the struggles of pandemic life in our respective careers, and we were each affected in our own way by the impacts of COVID and the rules and uncertainty that came along with it. I remember being on her porch. She was so upset about one of the many issues that were plaguing the hospital at the time. She was pouring her heart out to me. I did my best to listen, but the whole time I was actually only half listening because I was silently and frenetically brainstorming solutions for her problematic scenario. In a hospital, during a pandemic, what the actual Lindsay? What right did I have to try and problem solve that for her? That was not my place. But there I was, so desperate to fix this problem for this person that I love so very much. I was extremely blinded by my need for her to be okay. And I thought, I have to make this okay. So I started in on all the, why don't you try? And have you thought of? And how about you? And that's when she shut down. In hindsight, reasonably so. And in that moment, I completely didn't understand why she shut down. I had no awareness that my approach had been the wrong one. Again, I was blinded by my need to make things okay for her. There was a wedge between us for a little while, and I couldn't figure it out. We just kind of let it go. But oddly enough, a couple months later, I was having a teaching related problem, and we were out for a walk, and I was telling her about it, and she immediately jumped in with solutions, just like I had for her. I got really agitated, and I couldn't really put my finger on it, but all I knew was that wasn't what I needed in that moment. I just wanted to vent. I just wanted to be seen. I just wanted to be heard. And that's when I figured out where the problem was, why we had been somewhat disconnected after the hospital problem-solving disaster. I was having the same experience of not feeling seen and heard, just like she had had a couple months before. So we regrouped a few days later on her porch and rehashed the situation. She was so brave. She told me she was upset because she didn't feel like I had really actively listened to the problem she was having because I jumped too quickly to solutions. And I said, yep, I completely understand now. That particular brand of help was not helpful in that moment. And I was able to tell her that solutions were not what I had been looking for in my teaching situation either. And we were so brave and so honest and so vulnerable. And we came up with a great system I will tell you about later on in the episode. It's an excellent system. It rescued our friendship, and I continue to use it in all kinds of other areas of my life as well, at work, with my kids, in my relationship, and my other friendships as well. Stay tuned. It's amazing. So, how do we know what kind of help is helpful? How do we know what to offer and when to offer it? The answer is actually so ridiculously simple. It was right in front of me my whole life, and I don't know why I just didn't see it. Guess what? You just ask. It's that simple. You just ask them what they need. I was always so eager to offer help, and I'll get into my recent unearthing of the root of that behavior in a bit, that I didn't stop to think of whether or not it was actually helpful. There was also the element of me being emotionally unavailable for a really long time in my life for those hard conversations. Tapping into other people's vulnerability meant I too had to be vulnerable, and I was not often willing to go there. So I would just jump in with so-called help instead of just asking my people straight up what they might need from me in that moment. So all of that having been said, let's circle back to S and myself and our friendship saving solution, because it's super simple. We came up with 3 possible responses for when we come to each other with a problem. They are: 1, react with me. This means feel mad with me, cry with me, feel sad with me, proverbially punch someone in the throat with me. Number 2, hold space for me. This just means see me, hear me, be with me. No need for reaction. Just have empathy and let me know you're there for me. Number 3, help me. This option is more action oriented, and this option involves actual brainstorming, problem solving, solution based outcomes. So how do we enact this system in our friendships? So someone has an issue, right? And the one with the issue often prefaces the conversation with, I just need you to listen, or I need your help with something, or just get mad with me for a hot minute, okay? Other times, the listener will ask, what do you need from me right now? Or which kind of help do you need? This orients us both in the conversation. It defines the role the listener needs to play, like the lens they should have on the issue while they're listening. For example, I was extremely upset about a dating disaster situation a while back last year. I felt slighted and bitter and disappointed. I was really mad about it, but the anger was coming from a place of feeling discouraged and small and alone. So we went for a walk around my neighborhood, and I started in on my rant. I was just getting started when I stopped walking. I turned to her with tears streaming down my face, and I said, I don't need you to fix this for me. I just need you to see me right now. And she took my hand, and we kept walking, and I kept talking. And in that moment, she gave me exactly the help I needed. She held space for me to feel mad without trying to change it or make it go away. And this reminds me of a line from my favorite poem of all time. It's called The Invitation by Araya Mountain Dreamer. And the line goes like this: I want to know if you can sit with pain mine or your own, without moving to hide it or fade it or fix it. And this is what S and I do for each other when we need to. We sit with each other's pain without moving to hide it or fade it or fix it. And it's a beautiful and delicate thing we're able to do. It has served to bring us closer together time and time again. Here's another example of a time when my help was unhelpful. A person very close to me was in the weeds, and I took it upon myself to purchase pre-made meals for him and his family. I was so excited about the capacity to offer some assistance to him in this case. I was totally blinded by my own savior complex. I dropped off these organic, gluten-free, vegan meals, and I patted myself on the back. Nice work, Lindsay, I thought, only to find out a few weeks later that he ended up having a lot of extra food in the house. And food waste is a huge stressor for this person. And the offer of unplanned food only served to stress him out further, as there was not enough time or interest in gluten-free, organic, vegan mason jar meals to get through them all before they went bad. Helping fail right there for me. I made the stressful situation even worse, and I wasted food, which is also a pet peeve of mine. I felt awful all around, and lesson learned. I should have asked. I should have said, what do you need from me right now? Instead of taking it upon myself to offer help that ultimately wasn't helpful. I have a lovely friend and fellow educator, a phenomenal one, I might add, named Mr. M. He has committed himself to teaching his kindergarten kiddos this lesson of being helpful very early on. In case any of you haven't been in a kindergarten class for 40 years or so, 4 and 5-year-olds love to be helpful. And as you can imagine, their help is not always helpful. I was in Mr. M's class with him this past March, and he had taken them out to the forest behind the school where there were maple trees and the sap was running. The buckets of sap were so full to the brim, some of them, and very, very, very heavy. These lovely tiny humans wanted so badly to help carry the buckets, and they kept grabbing the handles and trying to help carry, which you can imagine resulted in sap sloshing everywhere. It was so comical. I was dying laughing, but I was trying to hide it from poor Mr. M, who was being swarmed by an army of tiny helpers. He stopped and calmly put the buckets down, and he said to the tiny helper army, "Friends, do you remember, how do you know if Mr. M needs help?" To which they all replied, "He'll ask for it." And Mr. M said, "Right, it's only helping if someone asks for it." And it was a magical moment for a million reasons. These kids, with their overzealous need for helping, now had an understanding that sometimes help is not helpful. And they'll carry this lesson with them as they get older, and hopefully they won't end up spending a small fortune on organic, vegan mason jar meals that will just end up getting thrown out. So, where does the human drive to help come from? What place in ourselves does the need to be helpful come from? What purpose does it serve? There are a plethora of other factors at play here, but I believe there are 2 main motivating factors for wanting to be helpful. It derives from either A, the need to be viewed as the saver, which is more of a selfish place, or B, the need actually to be a saver, which is a more selfless place. Let me say that again. A, being viewed as a saver, or B, actually being a saver. Now, vulnerability alert. If I'm being really, really honest and vulnerable here, I've spent most of my life helping people, not only because I wanted to make things easier for them and help, but also because I wanted people to like me and I wanted them to keep me around. And I thought if I was viewed as someone who was helpful and could solve problems, I would gain favor and therefore security in the friendship or relationship. For anyone listening whom I've helped in the past, please know I really did enjoy helping you. It wasn't always for selfish reasons, I promise. But if I'm being really honest with myself, which I don't always love doing, sometimes the helping behavior did come from a place of my own deep insecurity and my need to remain valuable in my relationships and therefore continue to be accepted. The other main factor is when helping comes from a genuine place of selflessness and giving. I have a wonderful friend named Kay, who is the busiest person I know. And also, she's the most helpful person I know. She's extremely selfless in her giving of time and favors. Just last year, she found out how much I was having to pay to get Robert Q to drive me home from the Detroit airport, and also that I would be sitting around the Detroit airport at night for 5 hours waiting for this shuttle. She immediately demanded I cancel the reservation for the shuttle. She would drive the 2 hours across the border and back to collect me from the airport, rather than have me pay and wait for the shuttle. This woman does not have an extra minute in her life to give, but she gave it anyway because she loves me and because she has a genuine want and need for people to be happy, peaceful, and sane, and in turn not stranded in an airport at night, broke and alone. When we look a little deeper at these two main motivators, we can start to see how these helping behaviors can be perceived by the recipient. There's a lot of sayings like, it's the thought that counts, and their heart was in the right place. And while that might be true, the motivating factor for the helper might be selfless, and their heart might absolutely be in the right place. But also, the help can still be unhelpful. I'm actually beginning to doubt the validity of some of those statements of it's the thought that counts, etc. Now that I understand that help can be so incredibly unhelpful. I think if a grown human, the super helpful 5-year-old kindergarten students don't count here, but if a fully grown adult human had their heart in the right place and the best interests of the recipient in mind, they would consider the needs of the recipient before charging ahead with the help. And this is where I went wrong with the Solutions for S and the mason jar dinners. I do believe that most people are good. However, as it relates to someone else's needs, we cannot just consider what is in our own hearts, but what's in the hearts of others. What do they need right now is a much better question than what can I offer right now? Because maybe what you have to offer is not what they need. And maybe what they need, for example, dinner made for them or their garden weeded, is not what you can offer. And that's okay. This is another opportunity to set boundaries. If you ask them what they need and it's outside your scope of skill, time, money, emotional bandwidth, then you can just tell them that. Support and help come in many forms and from many sources. Like if you don't have the time to run errands for a busy single mom to help her get through her Tuesday, maybe you can offer to set her up with an online grocery delivery service. Or if you don't have the skill set to help a friend fix her bathroom faucet, yes, this is a nod to episode 3, then maybe you can offer to call your brother to come and help her. Setting limits on what you can offer can also help to maintain healthy friendship and connection, as it avoids the potential for resentment to build, which is often the result when we give too much of ourselves to a person at our own expense. Myself and S will send text messages to each other like, I don't need you immediately, but I'd love to see you and talk about something that happened to my kid at school today if you have the bandwidth. Or like the other day when I texted and said, hey, do you have the time and space this evening to review the latest episode before I post it? This gives the other one the opportunity to assess their own capacity to give and help before saying yes or no. Boundaries allow us to help ourselves while we're helping others. So how do we know if our help will be helpful? We just ask. We say, what do you need from me right now? We say, do you need me to react? Do you need me to hold space? Do you need me to problem solve? This clarity of intention will ensure that the help you give is actually helpful for the people that you love and care about. All right, welcome to the Stacks, everyone. This week, the book is actually simply a a poem. Now that I've alluded to The Invitation by Araya Mountain Dreamer, I insist that you read the whole piece. It is in print somewhere, I'm sure. However, if you just Google the title and author, it will appear on about 1 million websites. Read it to yourself, read it to your kids, read it to your friends, read it to your partner. Just read it. Let her words sink in, and you will no doubt find a nugget or two of wisdom in that beautiful piece of writing. The podcast I found is called Feeling Good with David D. Burns, episode 146, When Helping Doesn't Help. This one refers back to the idea of toxic positivity from episode 1 as well, so there's a little combo for you. Gratitude is the antidote for chaos, and this week and eternally, I am grateful for my friend S. She and I have been connected and our lives and stories intertwined for 15 years. Thank you so much, S, for your time and your patience, your boisterous laugh, your endless supply of bandwidth and swear words for me. I love you. This week, when chaos hits, don't forget to turn your face towards the sun. Thanks for listening. See you next time. Bye.